Well, for more insight from both sides of the aisle, I want to bring in two former congressmen, veterans of the Hill, Republican Tom Davis from Virginia and also Texas Democrat Martin Frost. They have spent many years on Capitol Hill trying to forge bipartisan compromises, and did we need one over the weekend? Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. I want to direct my first question to Congressman Davis. Is Boehner going to be able to sell this deal to the House? What do you think?
Well, he's not going to be able to carry this with Republican votes. He's going to need a significant Democratic contribution to be able to pass this. You have to remember that less than 1/4 of House races were even in partisan contention last November, when you had the largest midterm turnover since 1938. Most of these members are concerned about going back to their primary elections. This is a vote most House Republicans want to vote no. And they're looking for a way to vote no. So it's going to be difficult for him to carry this on his own. He's going to need a substantial Democratic contribution, but I think they'll get it done.
Congressman Frost, do you think he will get that?
I think that the Speaker is in a peculiar situation. He wants to have a majority of his own caucus. That would be about 130 votes. If he gets 130 votes, then he's got to get 90 Democratic votes. And
right.
I think this deal has to be done sooner rather than later. I think the longer it hangs out, the more people are going to nitpick it. You can expect this thing to be voted on today, maybe late tonight. I think this could wind up being a relatively close vote in the House.
But you think it'll pass? Congressman Frost, you think it'll pass?
I think it will pass, but I think that, as I said, I think it's got to be done sooner rather than later. And the big issue is going to be taxes, because the two parties are saying separate things. The president's saying, oh, yes, taxes are on the table in the second round. The Speaker is saying, no, they're not really on the table. They may not resolve this. They may just talk past each other and try and convince each side that they've done the right thing.
Right.
Let me chime in. I mean, there are two different narratives on this bill. There's a Republican narrative and a Democratic narrative. Mm-hmm. If either side were to hear what the other side's saying, they'd never vote for it. So they're look, they've got a lot of duct tape, scotch tape, trying to hold this thing together. At least this gets us past the immediate crisis. You still have the long-term budget deals. But the reality of this is it's going to be a tough vote. And I was there for TARP. We thought we had the votes going into it. It went down big. But I think they'll find a way to get this done. They have a pretty good whip operation over on the Republican side.
No, they do.
Yeah, I was there. I was there for 26 years, and we had some pretty close votes during that time, too, particularly during 1993 when President Clinton was trying to reduce the deficit. You remember that was decided by one vote. Hopefully this one won't be quite so close.
Both of you have had years and years of experience being on bipartisan congressional committees. Now we're talking about this sort of super congressional committee or super committee. In your view, what has got to happen to make sure that this committee can pull it off and actually be able to implement, $1.5 trillion more in cuts? Congressman Davis, you want to take that first?
Yeah, let me start by saying, if you think it was hard now when you got the economy of the country hanging over with you, this gets you a month closer to an election cycle. It's going to be difficult for these groups to come together and agree on anything meaningful. Even now, as you take a look at some of the cuts that would come in if they don't reach an agreement, they tend to be illusory. We don't cut providers. We do it in the law, but as a practical matter, you get extenders every year to stop those from taking effect. So I'm pretty skeptical of what you can reach as you get closer to an election, moving into an election year, in terms of additional cuts. It doesn't get any easier than it was now.
And the interesting thing will be who will be named to this committee, whether you put hardliners on both sides that aren't prone to compromise, or whether each side tries to put some people who are flexible. For example, does Tom Coburn get named to this committee? Coburn is a Republican senator who showed some flexibility. Do the Republicans appoint somebody in the House from the Tea Party who doesn't want to compromise on anything? Gets interesting to see who's actually in the room.
Martin, and if you have any taxes, if you have any taxes in this, it's going to be dead in the House to begin with. So I think that is a non-starter.
All right, I'm going to have to leave it here. But thank you very much to both of you, Congressman.